from facing a sentence of 18 months in prison to returning to the set of his movie as if nothing happened. It's a shock that Alec Baldwin is back to shooting Rust, the most cursed movie in Hollywood. As of this week, the cameras have begun rolling once more. The movie has gotten back on track for the first time since October 2021.
Back to work. I haven't worked since October 21st of last year,
which is when Alec Baldwin accidentally shot and killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Photos from the set show the veteran actor in costume as Harland Rust, the movie's protagonist. According to reports, the movie is expected to smoothly sail through its production, which should wrap up by May. He was also seen at a nearby sushi restaurant with his wife Hilaria, and the couple seemed to be in good spirits. You can't blame them for that. With all the charges against him being dropped, Alec can finally breathe a sigh of relief as he gets on with his life. Of course, the question of justice for Helena Hutchins remains unanswered.
To seek compensation just and fair for Matt Hutchins and his son Andros, who he lost, his long-term wife, who was the love of his life.
While no one has ever suggested that Baldwin shot her on purpose, her family was likely hoping someone would be held accountable for what happened. Speaking of what happened, let's spend some time taking stock of this case. Let's start with the incident itself. On October 21st, 2021, the movie was shooting a confrontational scene in a church. Baldwin was handed a gun, and in what some would consider a grave misstep, he didn't check the gun to see if it was loaded or what it might be loaded with. In the scene, the actor was meant to point the gun at the camera, though the scene hadn't started shooting yet. While discussing what he was going to do on camera, Baldwin explained to the crew that he'd pull out the gun and take aim at the camera, actually removing his gun from its holster to show them. In the process, he accidentally pulled the trigger. Since the gun was loaded with a live round, he ended up shooting at the cameras for real. The bullet ended up injuring director Joel Souza, but struck Helena Hutchins in the chest. Though she was flown by helicopter to the University of New Mexico Hospital, she was ultimately pronounced dead. Baldwin and two other members of the crew were arrested as the sheriff's office began their investigation. Naturally, production of the movie was shut down, although co-producer Angel Nigam was sure that it'd start back up again. Well, nearly 2 years later, Angel was proven right. So how did a gun with a live round end up in Alec's hands in the first place? It turns out that this was a really sloppily run set. One of the other key figures in this case is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the on-set armorer and daughter of legendary armorer Thel Reed. Gutierrez-Reed has never quite lived up to her dad's reputation, as she infamously attracted heat from the cast of her first movie, The Old Way. In a textbook case of foreshadowing, Hannah shot a weapon without warning anyone. This caused Nicolas Cage to leave the set. Another person of interest was assistant director David Halls, who also has a reputation for running unsafe sets with a lack of safety protocols. Is it any wonder that safety was basically optional in the production of Rust? There were reports that crew members were not briefed on any firearm safety protocols. There were no medics on the set, and there were already 3 incidents of guns accidentally firing blanks. The working conditions were so terrible that crew members associated with the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees went on strike. With that kind of background and no audit of the set, it almost seemed inevitable that someone was going to be seriously injured. Helena Hutchins supported the walkout of the IATSE workers, and if she'd walked out with them, she might be alive today. You might be wondering if any heads have rolled for what happened. I'm afraid I don't have much good news for you there.
Surrounded by first responders, Helena Hutchins on the ground in the church where she was shot by Alec Baldwin.
Baldwin, Gutierrez-Reed, and Halls were the ones in the hot seat for the shooting incident. Back in March, Halls pleaded no contest to a misdemeanor charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon, which earned him 6 months of unsupervised probation, 24 hours of community service, and a $200 fine. The case against Gutierrez-Reed hasn't been resolved yet, though her case was linked to Baldwin's. They were both charged with involuntary manslaughter and faced a maximum sentence of 18 months in prison.
These charges were shocking to everybody. No one expected them to come down that hard on Alec.
Hannah's trial is set to begin on May 3rd. Those are just the state's charges, but things aren't looking much better on the civil side of things. Sergei Svetnoy and Mamie Mitchell, the gaffer and script supervisor for the movie, respectively, filed suits against the production. While Baldwin and the producers failed to get those suits dismissed, the cases are on hold until February of next year. Helena Hutchins' family also filed a wrongful death suit, which they settled back in October. So at least they've gotten some closure closure from this situation. They're not done yet, though, as the family has filed another suit for negligence.
In the extensive interview with Hoda Kotb, Hutchins, who's filed a civil suit against Baldwin and others on the production of Rust.
We'll have to see where that goes. I think we can all agree that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and David Halls deserve most of the blame for what happened. I do have to address the million-dollar question, though. Was Alec Baldwin really responsible for what happened? The fact that all charges were dropped against him suggests that the answer is no. But things aren't that simple in the legal world, are they? If you want to get technical about it, the only thing this proves is that the prosecution didn't have a case they could win. It's true, though, that the case against Baldwin was pretty murky from the start. Let's start with that smoking gun. Although many people have accused Baldwin of negligence with that gun.
The police investigation is still focused on how a live round came to be in that gun. Investigators say there was complacency on set.
The fact of the matter is that actors aren't responsible for gun safety. Making sure that guns are empty or only loaded with blanks is the armorer's job. But Baldwin's responsibilities are a bit deeper than that because he isn't just an actor. He's also one of the main producers of the movie. Producers are responsible for a lot of the setup for a movie's shoot. Things like arranging sets and locations, hiring staff, and so on. That's right, hiring questionable people like Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and David Halls is something that falls on his shoulders. You could go further and say that the unsafe and reckless working conditions, the stuff that triggered the IATSE workers' strike, was also something that Baldwin should have stamped out. Ultimately, he can't claim to be completely innocent of what happened during the production of Rust, even if he has narrowly avoided legal liability for the death of Helena Hutchins. I guess only one question remains. Will Rust actually see the light of day? At this point, it's pretty much anyone's guess what this movie's fate will be. With all the controversy surrounding this film because of this case, I was pretty sure that Rust was done. Even if Baldwin managed to beat the charges against him, surely no one would actually try to restart this movie. Well, it has. It's worth noting that this isn't some high-budget production that's supposed to take years to do. The original timeline for completing this movie was just 21 days, and it was meant to have a budget of less than $8 million. So it's not completely impossible for this movie to be finished. The movie even has a distributor, The Avenue. Everything is in place for the movie to come to theaters someday, provided nothing else goes wrong. I do wonder, though, if the public is ready for the movie to come out. There's no doubt that the movie carries a stigma. Even if there's a backlash against the movie when the marketing starts, there's a chance that The Avenue will get spooked and bail out on distributing it. Everything depends on the outcome of the trial against Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and whether people are happy with that outcome or not. That's all I have for you today on the continuing story of Rust.
And I would then draw the gun, cross-draw out of my holster, pull the gun up like that, and start to cock the pistol, cut. I'm handed a gun, and someone declares, they said, this is a cold gun.